December is always a hard time of year for us as pastors because we always wonder at what point do we begin telling the Christmas story. And as you can tell, today is not that day. We're continuing on in Joshua today. Joshua chapter 12 is where we find ourselves. And Joshua 12 is a very interesting chapter. The sermon title is The Pain of Victory. You're going to look in your bulletins and you're going to see the absence of an outline, and I did that on purpose because as I was preparing that written outline for you, I thought, man, it's kind of an erratic chapter for us to look at, and rather than make you guys write down the names of the 33 kings mentioned in Joshua chapter 12, I figured you just want to read along for a moment. Joshua 12 is a list of all the kings defeated by Joshua. That's all it is. It's just a list of the kings defeated. There isn't any details given. There isn't any storyline given. It's just a list of all the kings that Joshua defeated. I have had easier chapters to prepare a sermon on. This I will tell you. Because what do you do with a list of names? Well, we're going to find out here in just a moment. Because today's sermon is more in between the lines than it is the lines themselves. But I believe it's a sermon that God gave me today. I don't think it's one he's displeased with. So if you want to turn Joshua 12, it's page 222 for those Pew Bibles. You're going to pull that out because the list, it's an interesting list to read. But page 222 there in the Pew Bibles, and help you follow along with this just a little bit as we continue on here in Joshua, describing these victories that they've had. The sermon idea is this, is that it sure feels great to win. How many people agree with that? It feels good to win. Whether it's in a card game with your little kids, even though my kids all cheat and they never let me win, all right? Or, yeah, you know, I'm just bad at games. Thank you. I'm bad at games. Wow. All right. So says my little girl. I'm bad at games. But you know, it feels good to win. But sometimes the victories come at a great cost. That's a true statement as well, isn't it? Sometimes when you get done winning, yeah, you got the joy of the win, but man, there's some soreness that happens. And we should celebrate the wins, but we should never minimize the hurts that occurred on the road to victory. And that is an interesting thing. As I was reading through Joshua 12, I was reminded of the previous 11 chapters of Joshua. Because that's what Joshua 12 does. It tells the story of what's happened in previous 11 chapters. But in the previous 11 chapters, there are some stories of some hurts that have occurred. Some hurts that I think the people of Israel did not forget. And for many of them was still fresh and still very real for them. So we're going to look at some of that today, and we're going to see what this means to us as a church as we celebrate the victories, but also as we remember to not minimize the hurts. Let's go to God in prayer before we get started. Lord, we're coming to you today. We're asking for your wisdom in this. Help us as we go through this passage together. Help us to be able to understand it in a new way. But Lord, I pray maybe bring some application in a direction we've never thought about before. Guide us in this conversation today. In Jesus' name, amen. As a reminder, the nation of Israel is just a small nation. So that little, what looks like a lake is actually the nation of Israel in relation to the United States. Small country, 260 miles long, 70 miles wide. Small piece of real estate. God had told the nation of Israel they're going to go in, they're going to clean these people out. The Perizzites, Hivites, Jebusites, Ammonites, Moabites, Hittites, Philistines, Canaanites, all these people, they're supposed to be gone. They're going to come in and clear it all out. Down here, you're going to see this blue line going up through there. That's the Jordan. Okay, you got the Sea of Galilee, you've got the Dead Sea. So this is the Jordan. Joshua 12 describes the victories over 33 kings, 2 on the east side of Jordan, and then 31 on the west side of the Jordan. We're going to read down through that list. So here's some of the victories. I'm just going to read them off real quick for you. I'm going to mess up their names, so forgive me. That's all right. I'm good with that. We got Sihon, king of the Amorites, Og, king of Bashan, the king of Jericho, the king of Ai, the king of Jerusalem. You've got the king of Hebron, the king of Jarmuth, the king of Lachish, the king of Eglon, the king of Gezer. You've got the king of Debir, the king of Gader. If my clicker works, the king of Hormah. You've got the king of Arad, the king of Libnah, the king of Abdullam, the king of Makkedah, the king of Bethel, the king of Tappuah, the king of Hepher. A lot of kings here, isn't there? The king of Aphek, the king of Lasharon, the king of Madon, the king of Hazor, the king of Shimron Meron. Got the king of Akshaph, the king of Tanakh, the king of Megiddo, the king of Kadesh, the king of Jokneam and Carmel. You've got the king of Dor and Naphath Dor, the king of Goim in Galilee, and the king of Tirzah. That's a lot of kings. That's a lot of battles. That's a lot of wars, isn't it? That's a lot. Now you sit there and you look at that list, and how excited are you as a nation of Israel? You look back and think, man, this is pretty awesome. Look where we are today. This is pretty awesome. We beat all these guys, didn't we? But what we got to remember is that those victories came at a great cost. There was a cost for some of these victories, and things that we sit there and look about in our own lives, that sometimes the victories that we have come at a great cost. Let's look, for example, here at the psychological cost. For those of you who have been in wars, you know that there's a psychological cost. And they talk about the PTSD. I mean, this is a real thing, right? And there are many people, whether you may not even have to go to war to have it. You could be an EMT and also suffer PTSD. You can be a doctor. There are many studies on the new thing right now, with even among pastors, church pastors, who suffer from PTSD. I was talking to a pastor friend of mine just about 2 weeks ago, and he mentioned one of his pastor friends who he woke up in the middle of the night and his head was literally 2 inches off the pillow because of the stress in his life. He couldn't relax to lower his head on his pillow. That's how much stress he was going under. That's PTSD. That's psychological cost. And the Bible describes the psychological cost of the nation of Israel. In Joshua chapter 7, verse 5, we see that the men of Ai killed about 36 of their men and chased them before the gate as far as Cherubim and struck them at the descent. And the hearts of the people melted and became as water. Does that sound like they're in a good psychological state? Well, the answer is no. Their hearts melted. The people of Israel, their hearts melted. Their estimates are coming into this that they're about 1 million strong. They go to this battle of Ai, and because of sin, if you go back to chapter 11, or chapter 7, you're going to read this story of Achan. But you're going to see where sin impacted them. And because of this sin, 36 men died, and the hearts of the people of Israel melted within them. That's some stress. That's a lot of psychological stress on the whole heart of the people. In chapter 8, God says to them, look, do not fear, do not be dismayed. God looks at them and he understands the stress that they're under. He says, I'm going to be with you. I'm going to go with you. Go up, arise, go to Ai. I've given you into the hand your king Ai and his people, his city, his land. You're going to be able to defeat him. But the people of Israel in Joshua 12, as they're reading through and they see that name, the king of Ai, do you think they also remember the hurt that came along with that? I bet they do. I bet they do. There's a psychological cost. In chapter 10, again, the Lord said, Joshua, do not fear them, for I give them into your hands. Not a man of them shall stand before you. They're going up against 5 kings at this moment. 6 kings, I'm sorry. They're going up against six kings at this moment. And they're going to win. But there was fear. There was trauma. There was a psychological cost to these victories for the people of Israel. How about this one? There's a cost of life. I already read that verse, but look at this. Men of Ai killed about 36 of their men. Okay, so in Joshua 12, you read these victories of 33, and this is the only passage from Joshua 1 to chapter 12 where there is a list of how many of their men, of how many of the men of Israel died in battle. Does that mean these are the only men of Israel that died in battle? I will tell you with 100% certainty, I don't know. I don't know. The Bible doesn't say. Is it possible that God supernaturally protected them? Yes, God can. Is it possible that he did? Yes, it's possible. Did he? I don't know. But I do know that in the story of Ai, there was for sure 36 men who were killed. So when you're one of the families who lost your man in that, and you read this victory that the nation of Israel had against the king of Ai, what do you think of? Do you think, glorious day, that was awesome? Or you grieve? You grieve. It hurt. There's a hurt there. And then you have 1 million people around you who are dancing and celebrating, and what are you thinking? This hurts. This hurts really bad because of the pain associated with the cost of that victory. Now, I would imagine in the other battles, if at least there wasn't loss of life, there was probably some very grievous injuries. there were some other hurts that happened in all of this. And I would imagine as they read through that list in Joshua 12 of all those kings defeated, that it's a glorious time. And yes, there was praise and there was just a lot of things happening. It was just an exciting time for them. But I imagine there was also a lot of hurts that these people were remembering. And how about this? The cost of poor decisions. This is interesting because this is a trust issue here. In chapter 9, we read the story of Gibeon, the Gibeonites, who, knowing that the nation of Israel was defeating everybody, they said, look, if we can't beat them, let's join them. So they came in and they pulled this deception off of the nation of Israel. They tried to deceive them, saying, hey, we came from a far off country. We're here because of your God. We want to be with you. We want to be your servants. All this good stuff. And they said, well, how can we know that you're from a far off country? And the people of Gibeon had put together this deception where their wineskins were old and cracked, and their clothes were old, and their bread was old. And they say, hey, look, this is evidence because when we left, all this was new. When in reality, the people of Gibeon were neighbors. But in Joshua chapter 9, we read where the men of Israel, the men took some of their provisions, but did not ask counsel from the Lord. And Joshua made peace with them, with the Gibeonites. And he made a covenant with them to let them live. And the leaders of the congregation swore to them. So you have the leadership of this congregation making a decision without seeking counsel from God. And a decision that ended up affecting the whole congregation, because look at this here. And the people of Israel did not attack them because the leaders of the congregation had sworn to them by the Lord, the God of Israel. But then all of the congregation murmured against the leaders. Man, I think there was a cost there. Doesn't that happen sometimes in life? I mean, doesn't it happen in church? I mean, it does, doesn't it? This is real life being lived out, where we make decisions sometimes and we think it's a good decision based on the information that we have, and in reality it backfires because it wasn't a good decision. And what happens in the congregation, they lost trust with the leadership. They murmured against the leadership. There was this lack of, at some point you have to wonder, man, is Joshua really the guy to lead us? This guy, he goes and makes this decision without asking counsel from God, and he's doing this thing that we're not supposed to do, and is this really the guy that should lead us? There's these questions, the fair questions that I'd be asking, right? That's a cost. That's a cost. And as you go back through and you read about those kings that they fought in defense of Gibeon, how many of those people thought, you know what, if it hadn't been for that crazy pact we made with Gibeon, we never would have even had to do those in defense of them. Yeah, we would have gone in and we'd have taken them out, but for a whole different reason. And sit there in the frustrations, the lack of trust that may have happened in the leadership. That's a cost of a victory. And I'm sure Joshua, looking back as a leader, is like, man, I wish I could have done that all over again. Let me tell you, there are times that, frankly, if you're in a leadership position, you're always going to have those regrets, those things that you wish you could do differently. It wasn't done with ill intent, right? But sometimes there are decisions that are made that are just, frankly, the wrong decision. And that happens. And at that moment, what happens is the congregation murmurs against you, as is their right. So how do you work through that? Well, understanding what's our purpose. Coming united again are the purpose. In the congregation, they came again united. So you know what? God's brought us here to do this. We're going to do this. And they worked through it, but it was a cost. It cost them. So let's look for just a moment. Let's bring it back around to us. There's some victories at Grace here I want to talk about. And for some of you, you may not think it's such a big victory, but for others who've been here for years, you say, yeah, that's a big thing. But for some of us, as we sit there and look at this list, there may be a little hurt that twinges, and we're going to talk about that in just a moment. For example, let's look at the new attendees attending Grace. I mean, there is a lot of new people attending Grace. That's a victory, isn't it? That's a God-given victory. That's a wonderful thing. That's something to celebrate. It's definitely worth celebrating. We've got some new windows here on the front that let in a whole lot of light. That is worth celebrating. For those who've been here for a long time, you know what a difference that makes just in our lobby. Jenna Edwards told me, shortly after we put that one window in over here, she said, you know, I used to vacuum the lobby with a flashlight because it was so dark in there. And it was. For those who are here, you know how dark it was. That's a whole new thing for us. We got new chairs here, okay? We can hold more people. Our pews limited at 118 was maximum seating. We had 148 in here last August. That would not have worked at pews. That's a victory, right? We've got new classrooms downstairs. It's a wonderful thing. New classrooms downstairs. We've got a new kitchen up here that we can use. These are all good victories, but these victories come at a cost. There's a cost for us at Grace. And sometimes I think while we celebrate the victories, we can't minimize the cost, all right? We have to understand that there's some people here, when they read this list, there are some hurts that may be associated with it. Let's look at this for just a moment. People don't normally look for God when things are going well. When it comes to new attendees at Grace, think about that. Some of them are new because they moved into the area, and that's a great thing. Some of them are new because, frankly, life was kicking them in the teeth, and they knew they needed God at that moment. And so while they're grateful they're here, the reason they came may be a little hurt. There may be some hurt for them, and we need to remember that just because we've gained victory doesn't mean that there wasn't a hurt associated with that. And there are people here in our congregation today that are hurting because, yeah, God's working in their life, but man, it hurt to get them to come. There was a major hurt happening in their life to get them here. And so we look at the numbers, we think, wow, praise God, but you got to look at the heart and say, man, I hurt for them. We cannot minimize the hurts. And how about this? The front windows, both of those were paid for by memorials. What about the families who lost a member? Brian's grandfather was the one, his memorial paid for this other window on this side over here. Brian loved his grandfather. It's Renee's dad, Beverly's husband. And now he's gone. Ashley Kojal, who lost her husband, her young husband, when she had young kids. That's a hurt. We look at the church and as a church, we look at that, wow, this is an amazing blessing for us, but there's a hurt. And we cannot forget the hurt associated with that. Our pews were more comfortable and, frankly, more convenient. Last month was our month to clean the church as a family, and let me tell you, these things are a pain to vacuum around. Right? They are a pain to vacuum around. I hate it. Okay? Sherry, you did it yesterday. How fun is this? Not much fun, is it? Okay? They're a pain because then you got to go back. Basically, you got to re-straighten the whole thing after you get done. You really do. It's a pain. You sit there and you think about it, the fact the pews were more comfortable, were they not? Absolutely, they were more comfortable. I loved our pews. For you older people, you could grab a hold of the pew in front of you. You can pull on it to pull yourself up, right? It was nice. The pews were much more comfortable. These chairs are not that great to sit in compared to the pews. Now, they're not bad, but they're not that great. So we sit here and look at the chairs, and yeah, it's given us more convenience. We're able to use this for a fellowship hall. There's a lot of good things in here, but understand, for some of us, Sunday morning is a physical pain just because of our chairs. And throughout the week, having to set these things up and take them down and put them back up and take them down and move around, it's a pain, right? We understand why we have to do it. But I'm telling you, sometimes we look at these things, we're just like, rah, 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 rah. We grumble, okay? Because it's just frustrating. These victories come at a cost. The renovations for classrooms and kitchens was provided for by money that could have gone into our building fund. That's a true statement. I mean, the thousands of dollars invested in this, the thousands of dollars invested downstairs and in our windows, we'd be that much closer to paying for this out here. I mean, these are choices that we made, but they're painful choices for some of us. It's frustrating. These are hurts, guys, and what we have to remember as a church, just like the nation of Israel, we go through and we read our list of victories, but we have to recognize that there are people that's hurting in spite of it, and it's okay. It's okay to have those hurts. Let's go through and see what else we have to say. Well, Solomon says this in Ecclesiastes chapter 3. It's a familiar passage for many of you, but Ecclesiastes 3, 1 through 8, Solomon writes, "For everything there is a season, a time for every matter under heaven. There's a time to be born, a time to die. There's a time to plant and a time to pluck up what is planted. There's a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to break down and a time to build up." I go back up here to verse number 2. A time to be born, a time to die. Today we're hopefully going to be able to celebrate a birth of a little baby for Travis and Robin, who's right now at the hospital. But last Tuesday, for many of us here, a good friend of ours passed away. So today there's one family celebrating and there's another family grieving. Do we see how sometimes in a congregation you have people who are on both sides at the same time? Let's read on Ecclesiastes. There's a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn, a time to dance. There's a time to cast away stones and a time to gather stones together, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing. We're going to have people on Sunday morning, and every Sunday they're going to come. There's going to be people here who are just about ready to cry, and others who are just bubbling inside with joy because of the hurts and because of the victories. We're going to have people here who are going to want a hug, and they're just in the mood to hug. There's others because of maybe a hurt or even an anger in their life said, don't even touch me today, right? We're going to have that. As you read through this list of the victories again with Joshua and the people of Israel, I wonder how many of these Israelites were there. There were some who were mourning, and there were some who were dancing as this list was read. Continuing on, Ecclesiastes, there was a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to cast away. There's a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace. This list in Ecclesiastes, as I was read through this, thinking about this passage, I thought, man, God, how true that for some of us, we can be on one side and some of us can be on another side. We're still part of the same body, still in the same church and the same city, looking at the same list of victories, and yet some of us, the perceptions are exactly opposite because of the hurt experienced. And you know what? The scriptures seem to indicate very clearly that that's normal and it's okay. So moving on, what do we do with this? What do we do with this idea of the hurts caused by victory, the pains that people feel? How do we handle this? Well, we have to remember that for some, progress comes at a cost. It does. Progress comes at a cost. Whether it's even a financial cost, whether it's an emotional cost. Even, we think back, even the pulpit that used to be up here, this big monstrosity of a thing that I used to be able to hide behind. Okay, I love walking around in front. Is a huge pulpit. For some, that was hard. We haven't gotten rid of it. It's actually over there in the storage right now, and we may bring it back out at some point. But for some, that was hard because that's what Ken Christensen used to use. That was his pulpit, and so that came at a cost for them because Ken Christensen founded the church. He was the guy here from the very get-go. That was his. We can't get rid of that. Do we understand the validity of their thoughts? And for some, progress comes at a cost. We're able now to get a worship team up here with all the decorations, and it's much more friendly in my mind. So I look at that as possibly a good thing, but it's a good thing that comes at a cost. And we have to remember that. For some, progress costs. For many, change equals pain. And that's a true statement, whether it's in the church or whether it's in a family situation. For some of us, we don't like change at all. And any sort of change makes us uncomfortable. It's almost painful. And we have to remember that in spite of all the good things that are happening, there are others that look at that and there's a hurt, and it's a valid hurt associated. I cannot look in Joshua chapter 12, and as I read through that list, and even though the victories happen, you cannot condemn the families who lost the 36 men. I say, why are you guys sad? Well, of course we know why they're sad. It's logical for them to be sad, isn't it? Well, why are you guys still frustrated over Joshua for that decision that he made? Well, it impacted them. It made a big difference on them. And every time you see a Gibeonite, you think, why did they make that crazy commitment to them? That was stupid. You know what? They're right. It was stupid. These things happen. They come at a cost. And in a church, it's the same thing. There are things that you're reminded of. You say, wow, why did they even do that? Well, you can't change what happens. Can we unite together? But for some, change equals pain. And we should celebrate the victories. And Joshua 12 is all about celebrating the victories. So for those of you who are hurting today, Joshua 12 is as much for you as it is for us, because Joshua 12 is basically, don't get caught up in the hurts, but remember the victories. We can get caught up in the hurts, and we can wrap our minds around the hurts, and we can refuse to move past that. But we can't. We got to remember, yeah, that hurt, but there's a victory in the middle of it. There's a reason to praise in the middle of it. Okay? So if you're hurting today, man, I'm sorry. I hate it. It's the reality, but I hate it. Can't invalidate the hurt. I'm sorry that you are. But at the same time, I'm going to encourage you to not get so caught up in the hurt that you forget the good things that are happening. The ability that we have now to have a lunch up here where all of us can eat together rather than some people eating up in the classroom because they couldn't go down the stairs. That's hard for them. How much fun is it to have a potluck dinner when you're up here in this classroom by yourself because physically you can't go down the steps? We're able to do this together. Is it a pain? Absolutely it's a pain to move these chairs, shuffle everything around. But is it a victory in the end? Yeah, it is. It very much so is a victory. We've got to get past the hurts. But for those of us who are right now in the middle of praising, you should never forget the hurts either. Do not minimize the hurts. Do not try to invalidate what they're feeling. You can't, and you shouldn't. Appreciate where people are, because people are different places on a Sunday morning. Romans 12 says this, rejoice with those who rejoice, weep with those who weep. And when I look at Joshua chapter 12, I can't think of a better verse to describe how the nation of Israel should have responded at that moment to each other. For some, it was a time of sorrow, and you weep with them. For some, it was a time of rejoicing, and you rejoice with them. And we as a church, as we move forward in the future, because I'm not even close to thinking that God's done with us yet. I don't even have a twinge of the fact that I think God's done with us yet, because I don't believe God is done with us yet. I believe God's doing some great things yet. But there's going to be some things that for all of us, we may experience a little hurt. We may experience a change that we don't like. We may experience something that just hurts us. And in those moments, hopefully I as your pastor will be able to weep with you. But in those moments when God comes in and provides a victory, hopefully you'll be able to come alongside and rejoice with us. Because that's what a body does. That's committed to togetherness. A body that's united for one purpose. And we at Grace are united for the purpose of making mature followers of Jesus Christ. So we as a body, can we weep with those who weep? Can we rejoice with those who rejoice? Remembering that one purpose we have of making mature followers of Jesus Christ. Lord, we're coming to you today, and we're grateful for the victories at Grace. Lord, it's exciting to see all that you are doing. But God, as we look at this, we have to remember that there are some people here that are just hurting today. And you know what? It's okay. I wish we could take away the hurt. I wish we could change it, but we can't. It's an individual choice. And Lord, I pray that we who are rejoicing would be able to empathize with those who are grieving. And we pray that those who are grieving would in turn be able to turn and see the good that's happening. That both sides would be able to just for a moment try to look at it from the other person's perspective, and in the process build unity. Lord, that's what we're praying for. And we pray this in the name of your Son, Jesus. Amen.